In Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos gets the ultimate power trip, and it's all in the snap of his fingers. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. This week, I want to take us back to 1991's The Infinity Gauntlet. I know this storyline is like best known now for the Marvel Cinematic Universe's like crowning achievement, right? Everybody remembers Thanos. Everybody remembers that like super emotional way they closed the series in the films. The comic book is a lot different than that. And if you've never seen it before, if you've never read it, you're going to see a bit of a different telling of that famous story. So I thought, let's look at it now before we start that next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and see what it was all about and what made it the huge event that it was back in 1991. Guys, before we get started, you got to know the two tasked with bringing us this story, Jim Starlin and George Pérez, were absolute living legends at the time of this book. Jim Starlin like completely revamped Captain Marvel and Adam Warlock. He created Gamora and Drax the Destroyer and Shang-Chi. And George Pérez, if you don't know the name, if you don't recognize the name immediately, is like one of the most famous artists in comic book history. His run on Wonder Woman, the new Teen Titans, his Fantastic Four, his Avengers. I mean, these guys are like blockbuster comic book creators at a time where comic books are just about to change. I don't know if you saw my Spawn episode, but if you did, you know Spawn is about to experience a revolution. Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Mark Silvestri, Eric Larson, Will Sportacio, friggin' Jim Valentino. Everybody's about to leave Marvel Comics. You know, the next crew out are about to abandon ship and start something of their own and change comic book history and define the era away from Marvel Comics. So here you have two of the experienced heads at the helm of this massive event for Marvel Comics. And well, the rest is history, right? We all know this name now, the Infinity Gauntlet. We all know Thanos. If you don't know Jim Starlin, he did a ton of other great books, including Batman's Death in the Family and Marvel's first ever graphic novel, The Death of Captain Marvel. Guys, when Jim Starlin draws, he has the ability to capture outer space, like cosmic outer space, psychedelic outer space like no one else. George Pérez is on art here and he does an incredible job, but I really do believe Jim Starlin could have done the Infinity Gauntlet by himself. The reason I don't want to turn this page is because there's an awesome Jim Starlin opening line here, a quote that I must read you or I would be doing you a disservice talking to you about the Infinity Gauntlet. Listen to this. There can be no denying it. You are supreme. Anything you wish to be, you are. Anything you wish is. Nothing in this universe dare challenges that claim. There be only one word describe you. God. Within your grasp rests the infinite. My humble personage bows before your grandeur. I am proud to be your first acolyte and bask in the glory of your divine presence. How may I serve you, great Thanos? So that's our intro, right? Like we're introduced to a god king here. Literally, there it is, the words themselves. And you get your really cool, like, credits on the stones of this planet where we find Thanos and Mephisto, this underling, right? Mephisto features in some other Jim Starlin stuff, some Adam Warlock stuff and Silver Surfer stuff, but he's an underling. Come on. Thanos like demands attention here. It's really, really well done. Really awesome opening. And then he absolutely annihilates those rocks. And you get this sense of like, whoa, like where did this come from? Who is this guy? Cut to a beautiful page by George Pérez in the house of Stephen Strange. Everybody knows him. Everybody remembers him from those movies too. He played such a pivotal role. Doctor Strange starts out as like a real, not an A-list character in the early days of Marvel Comics. When Doctor Strange comes out, it's a Ditko book. It's a weird psychedelic Ditko book. It has none of the Strange we come to know. Well, That's not true. I shouldn't say it has none of the strange we come to know. It's just that the stories are so weird. He never really kicks on as a character or becomes like a mainstream successful character for a long time. But here, by 1991, when Jim Starlin and George Pérez get a hold of him, he's like, he might as well be the star of the show, like as cool a Doctor Strange as the one we know from the movies. And here he is in his study, right? Wong comes in, you remember him. All of a sudden, crashing through the roof is the Silver Surfer. And I'm sure the Silver Surfer is a character everybody knows. He's so cool, right? Come on. He surfs around outer space on a surfboard. I know you know him, but if you don't, there are so many great Silver Surfer stories to look at too. And I'm sure he's going to play a pivotal part in the next phase of the MCU, if you're an MCU guy. Silver Surfer brings some bad news, as you can see by the total anguish on his face. Apparently, death itself has resurrected Thanos and has tasked Thanos with restoring balance to the universe by killing half of its population. And you remember from the movies, that's his whole thing, right? He wants to like balance creation and take out half the population and restore balance to the universe. Well, here, there's a motive Thanos has. There's a reason. He's not just doing it because he wants to, right? It's not his own idea. It's actually for love, believe it or not. And we're going to see that in a second. But I have to bring up this incredible ad. Guys, if you're not old enough to remember Battletoads for the NES, wow. One of the hardest games I ever played. And just seeing this again when I opened this book, Guardians of the Galaxy, Infinity Gauntlet, is as old as I am. And seeing this ad and just instantly brought me back to those memories, getting home from school, turning on the NES and playing with my brother and trying to beat Battletoads, and just, wow, one of the hardest games of all time. If you haven't played it, definitely check it out. Awesome splash by Perez too, as Thanos shows off more of his powers. You get him in space here, and you can sense already, right? Like how almost weird of an outer space it is, and how different tonally this Thanos might be than the one we saw in the movies. And what a cool shot too, panel for panel, as Thanos like flex that Infinity Gauntlet, right? You take your eye is drawn, I should say, into the sparkling star of the Soul Stone, where we see the Silver Surfer again, and he takes us back to essentially sets up the reason Thanos goes after the Infinity Gauntlet and isn't just out there trying to destroy half the population on the advice or on the suggestion or on the in exchange for being resurrected by Mistress Death. So the Soul Stone, the Mind Stone, the Time Stone, reality, space, and power itself. Thanos thinks basically that if he can get himself an Infinity Gauntlet and have the backing of death itself, he will become a lot more than just the servant of death, the errand boy of the underworld. He will be a god, an equal, or even a superior to death, and make her his queen. So that's what essentially that's the setup. That's the setup of the Infinity Gauntlet of the comic books, which is crazy, right? Like, what? There's so much more wackiness going on. And when you have a Jim Starlin as a writer on a book, you're going to get like a psychedelic angle that you wouldn't draw yourself. It's not a modern storytelling style, really. Even though it's 1991, there was just a little bit something extra there. It was past reality. And I think there's a lot more reality in the MCU, even though I know that might sound silly to say. This panel tells that same story. Like, whoa, what are we looking at? You almost have to look at it for a while just to get a sense of how much is going on here. The laws of nature no longer bind him. He can twist the fabric of reality, and you get a sense of that here. Like, holy moly, dinosaurs, tidal waves, ruins, spaceships. Doctor Strange reflects on Silver Surfer's words, and he's like, geez Louise, this guy, he's out of control. What are we going to do? Now, there's a weird cut, in my opinion, in the first issue to these like no good nicks, like classic old no good nicks. Like look at these faces. Two hoodlums, right? Robber killers, their girl. It's like very old school thing. They drive off the edge of a cliff and they explode at the bottom of the cliff. Cut back to Doctor Strange and the Silver Surfer. It's a weird cut right there. This storyline gets, more convoluted as the issues go on, but it doesn't resolve itself in this first episode, in this first issue. So I almost can't even, say anything else about it. You're going to see a few like non sequitur moments with these no good nicks. Sorry. Then you get a more like Silver Surfer story filling in the blanks. Dude, look at these George Pérez faces, these twisted faces as they battle Thanos and are just like handily defeated. He reflects a Silver Surfer's power cosmic. He absolutely blows them away, steals their spiritual essence. I mean, it's God powers. Then another wacky Starlin twist here. They end up in the metaphysical world of the soul gem. Like, look, where are we? It's another world straight up. Who thought of this? Well, we know who thought of it. How? That's another matter. Where they meet one of Jim Starlin's favorite characters, a guy he worked a lot on. There's some Adam Warlock behind me, some Adam Warlock collections. They meet Adam Warlock. Actually, I wanted to mention, if you're a guy playing Marvel Rivals, you know what kind of character Adam Warlock can be. A lot of those cool cosmic characters, that world of Marvel, that side of Marvel, the cosmic universe surrounding the very like small town feel of a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man or a Daredevil in Hell's Kitchen. This huge cosmic galaxy is so molded by the hands of Jim Starlin, and George Pérez is doing himself no disservice here either. I mean, look at this, So anyway, Silver Surfer hopes he's not too late, right? With the message he brings to Doctor Strange, and we cut back to Thanos, who goes to see Mistress Death to basically let her know, like, hey, listen, I'm ready for marriage now. Like, I'm ready for you. You don't have to. But she turns her back on him. And you can see like the longing, even in this tiny little panel, the longing in his posture and the anger too in his face here. Like, what now? She just turned her back on me. This love story, this like weird romance, is a pretty serious feature of the Infinity Gauntlet story that was cut right out of the movies, of course. And back to these no good necks, the lady turned green. Just never mind. So anyways, cut to Death. Here she is again. Now we see her in like ladylike form. No wonder Thanos likes her. It was weird that he was in love with a skeleton for a little bit there. And she continues to turn her back on him. Like, hey, Death should be revered. I'll build palaces, shrines in her honor. I'll do anything for her. I'll win her love. I'll prove myself. What does she keep turning her back on me for? Won't she answer me? All this sort of thing. And then boom, he erects like instantly in outer space this like temple to Death, which reminds me, I don't know why, maybe it's just me, reminds me so much of Thulsa Doom's temple in Conan the Barbarian. To me, it just like jumps off the page. That similarity to me, it might just be me. I think it's really, really cool though. Like that he does this instantly for her. And the dialogue reflects like the epic tone of the whole thing too. Oh, wow. Something you don't see in comics anymore. Comic book sales where you can mail in. Just a fun, cool thing. So anyway, he swears he's going to get her love. He swears he'll do anything. He swears he worships death. He is as deadly as anybody else, as evil as anybody else. Behold, Thanos' greatest creation. This is where he shows like a true evil side. Guys, you remember Nebula in the movies where like one of Thanos' daughters and he, spoiler alert, rips her apart at one stage? This is Nebula. In the comics, she's like ripped to shreds. Like it's way worse than you get to see it in the movies, like a zombie. And he's done all this just simply because he can. So he's showing this off, like showing what he means business, right? He'll do anything for Death. He'll be as evil as anything is. I mean, and you're getting it's a lot of storytelling they're doing here. It's a lot of setup, as you can see on this Death storyline. And then it finally happens. He's like, oh yeah, if I want to win her love, I know what I'll do. I'll do the tasks she set forth for me. And that task is to restore balance to the universe by killing off half of its entire population. He holds up his Infinity Gauntlet fist, and even Mephisto's like, holy smoke, he's gonna do it. And he snaps his fingers. And the transition here, this cut is a really cool one, okay? Never mind those no good nicks. This one is awesome. Look at this. Guys, Todd McFarlane is already on Spider-Man at this point. This is George Pérez Spider-Man. Look at that New York City behind him all lit up. You see Spidey like swinging through New York, regular old friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, typical night. And then he sees it happen, right? His spider sense goes off and he's like, wait, what? What's going on? People are disappearing. What the? People are looking for what the? By the way, really cool Howard the Duck roast going on in Times Square. Funny. He worries about Mary Jane. Off he goes. Cut to Captain America at Avengers headquarters. Same thing, right? He walks past. He's talking to old friends. Hawkeye. He grabs something from the secretary. Whoops, let me flip this page. I can't reach. And boom, it happens to him too. And look at that awesome George Pérez panicked face. The way he draws the Avengers is really awesome. All of George Pérez's work is so bright, you know, there's something to it. It's not just the colors either, it's his pencils. He's so good. Cut to Nick Fury, of course, a very different Nick Fury than we know from the movies. Samuel L. Jackson. To me, he reminds me of Snake Plissken. Same thing happens there. Cut to the Hulk. Same thing happens there. He hears about it on TV. So all of a sudden, everybody's realizing this thing, right? Thanos has come. It's happening. That snap of the fingers that played out so well at the end of that first movie in the MCU. It's happening here on these pages everywhere, like throughout the universe. Here is a funny one. The Skrull Empire, blame it on the Kree Empire, another alien race. So, I mean, even they're involved. Like this is universe wide. It's not just New York City. It's not just Earth. And then back to Doctor Strange's house where the Silver Surfer still is. And boom, it happens there too. Wong disappears. Silver Surfer knows that they're dying. Look at the anguish on his face. They literally hold each other in this moment of like, you know, true desperation. Oh, okay. Another weird one. If you don't know the Titans, it's a weird bunch of characters. I mean, just look at them. They're a weird bunch of characters. They feature pretty heavily in The Death of Captain Marvel, a Jim Starlin book I mentioned earlier, and in some of his Adam Warlock stuff. I mean, you can just, by the look of them, you know, they almost look like munchkins from Munchkinland. They're cooler than they look. And then it ends, Thanos. Like they all know, oh damn, it's gotta have been him. And what a friggin' shot it is. These glowing eyes, like the shining jewels of the Infinity Stones in the Infinity Gauntlet in his eyes. What a seriously grim face it is. And so begins, cut back to the no good nicks, and so begins the Infinity Gauntlet. 1 of 6. Guys, what a cool first issue it is, and what a legendary story it becomes. So if you're a lifelong comic book fan or someone who's just getting into the hobby, stay tuned because there's a lot more to come over here. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the show, guys, and I'll see you next week.